There's two reasons why I say you should go for a little bit more pressure in this instance. Just because, number one, look at how much burnout state we have left, right? We've only gotten to a little bit under half. Whatever combo you decide to do here is not going to kill, right? Whatever combo you're going to do here is not going to kill. So instead of spending your meter early or going for the burnout early, I would prefer you would go for a little bit more of a pressure stance, have them a little bit more scared, and then now we can kill them so that whatever you decide to do, it kills immediately. Ryu boys, we're back again to help you guys out. Let's see what happened to you. Okay, so first thing right off the bat, we get a low forward drive rush. Beautiful, I love it, simple, clean. Immediately afterwards you go for throw. Zero issues with this. But one thing that I want to note very quickly is the fact that we need to make sure that we keep this in our minds for the next engagement we have like this. Reason being is because it's like, okay, now that I know that you will try and jump out of this situation, next time I'm gonna try and go for strike. If he happens to hold in place, let's go for strike again. If he keeps holding in place, let me go for different situations to try and mix up my offense, to make sure that you're always on your toes and you always have to choose an option, kind of making them go through a little bit of a roulette. This is something that I want you to keep in mind, and always when you're starting off fighting an opponent, you want to take note of these things on a constant basis. So one thing that I do want to note in this matchup is that you do win the fireball war. So if you do want to rely a little bit more on a zoning game or a game that's a little bit further away from your opponent, feel free to do so. Reason being is because the way his fireball works, it goes like this, right? And then it goes upwards. Yours goes straight. In the case that you go for something like this, let me put you in white actually. Yours goes straight, okay? So he has to make this collision box hit with yours at this interval, right? It's going to be a little bit harder for him to do so, right? So you're gonna have to time it, he might charge it, and then it's not very advantageous for him. So the things that he has to start to do in this matchup is to either try to perfect parry as per usual, this is the name of the game, or try to jump at you and slowly try to walk you down, right? In these cases, you can then start to use your distancing tools, where if they go for any sort of jump, we have DP anti-airs, right? If they try to approach, we also have donkey kick. To check them, we can also use solar plexus if they happen to block it, or plus. If you don't know what solar plexus is, that is his forward heavy punch. You can use that option to try and circumvent this. But these are the things you have to keep in mind while playing your matchups, is that do I win the fireball war or not? This matters because it changes the dynamic of whether you constantly have to keep approaching your opponent, or whether you can stay in place and kind of bully them from a range and then slowly walk them towards the corner, right? It's a completely different game whether you're chasing or whether you're the one who has to be pursued. Keep this in mind. Two things here, very simple things. Obviously, number one, first things first, it is always sweep for sweep, okay? Never forget this. In a lot of cases, or if they misspace it, you can actually get a low forward, right? In this case, if they're too close, unfortunately he's not close enough to get that, or I am corrected. You can get a whole route off of it, right? So keep in the mind the fact that you can get something like this and start your pressure from there, right? If you're successful off of the sweep for sweep situation, you could obviously go for a low forward if you're close enough. With the way Rashids work, I think in most cases you will be successful in this regard, so keep this in mind. So if you clicked on this video, I'm sure you need some help. Lord knows I did at some point. But here's the thing, you want your favorite content creators to come and help you, but let's be real, they're charging like $60 per hour. You don't need that. But when I got you, I got you good. Over on this channel, I do free coaching sessions on Tuesdays and on Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. EST. So what does that look like? I essentially go over your matches. I give you tools so that you can succeed the next time you open up ranked. So once again, join my Discord. Wait till I'm live either on Tuesdays or on Thursdays 6:30 p.m. EST. Be there or be square. Back to the video. The second thing I wanted to go over is the fact that it looks like our anti-air game is a little bit rough. It does concern me because Rashid is going to be one of those characters that is going to jump a lot. And if you can't successfully anti-air, then you're essentially putting yourself at risk. Anti-air jabs is not nearly consistent enough in order to get you where you want to go. At best, you'll cause a trade, but in a lot of instances, you want to get the whole anti-air just so that you'll get the whole situation, right? And let's say you're not there yet. I always preach this, okay? At the very least, crouching heavy punch. Why? Because you'll be getting the anti-air and you'll be stopping your opponent from making you guess, right? Every time you block an anti-air, you have to keep in mind that you're now putting yourself in a situation where you have to guess. But every time you're successful, let's say we even get the DP, every time you're successful, you get a chance to blow up your opponent. Okay, I want to note this because this is very good, okay? I really want to note this, and there is something about this that a lot of players need to start doing this as well, is that when you have your opponent at such low drive gauge as our opponent does here, right? We want to get a little bit more active. The reason being is because we want to either crush this to where they're in burnout or have them use some sort of resource to get you off of them, right? If they're using resources, now they have less so to bombo you at a later date. They have to keep in mind that they can't just be using that, because think of it in Rashid's case. If you cause him to use level 1, that denies him his level 2. And we want to deny him his level 2. So always keep in mind the fact that you should be pressuring your opponent, especially when they have low drive gauge like this, right? Here, off of this instance, since we're +2, we can go for another button. He had to respect you. You went for another standing medium punch into EX so that he's in a situation that's incredibly uncomfortable. And then now you can go ahead and bully him. So these are one of the situations that you want to be very, very mindful of, is the fact that if you're going for your pressure here, normally when you go for a button into a special move, you want to make sure it jails, because if they happen to hold up and you go for a special move, they're going to back roll. And in these cases, when they back roll, your move is not only going to whiff, but you're also going to be in recovery. So when you're in recovery, now they have the chance to back throw you. In this case, he forward throw you because he's platinum. There's two reasons why I say you should go for a little bit more pressure in this instance. Just because, number one, look at how much burnout state we have left, right? We've only gotten to a little bit under half of the time that's remaining, and whatever combo you decide to do here is not going to kill. Whatever combo you're going to do here is not going to kill. So instead of spending your meter early or going for the burnout early, I would prefer you would go for a little bit more of a pressure stance, have them a little bit more scared, and then now we can kill them. So that whatever you decide to do, it kills immediately. Honestly, you might just be one of the best platinums I've ever reviewed, to be honest with you, because this right here, great decision making. Number one, committed to down backing. If you get thrown, you get thrown. The next instance, you might go for a different option. But here, you were patient. You went for the DP, which is perfect. It gives you the exact momentum that you need. Unfortunately, you did not take it. But the thing is that afterwards here, I want you to take the offense to them. After you hit this, right? Don't be afraid to get something started, right? Or even if you want to go for something like this, or the fact that we want to put them back in the corner, right? Make an option that puts them in danger, right? Something like this, even just like a slight walk forward, walk back, will force them into a situation where they think that you're going to try and back throw them. So then off of that instance, if they think they're going to get back thrown, that's when we can do something like this, walk back into standing heavy punch, right? If they tech, they get hit with standing heavy punch, and whatever route you want to go, make sure we're not burning ourselves out, because we want to kind of bully our opponent, right? We want to bully our opponent. So these are the types of mind games that I want you to start enacting, because now, especially if you keep them in the corner, all they can do now is either super or get thrown or get dealt with, right? We want to make sure our opponent has to think about what they're doing and why they're doing it, and scare your opponent. If you can scare your opponent, you'll find that they'll do a lot of the things that you want them to do. Now here's a situation that I find pretty interesting, right? The question is, how many times did you throw your opponent? Comment down below how many times you threw your opponent thus far. Now, with that said, I want you to note the fact that how many times you throw your opponent will directly dictate whether they have go for tech a lot or not. If we scare our opponent that we're going to throw them, then you'll find that this is going to be a lot more effective. The jump shimmy is going to be a lot more effective. As of right now, he's been kind of tanking it, holding up. You notice that we're not getting too many tech situations all too often. I believe there's been 1 or 2 thus far, but we haven't really been enforcing that. So then going for an option like this is not going to be as strong, because we haven't enforced that in him yet. Once we have enforced that in him, now we're going to see a change in how he conducts his offense, or defense rather. Brother, no, listen, brother, this is party time, okay? This is big wig territory, right? This is big wig territory where we can hurt them for a lot of damage, right? This is where we let them hide. You said you wanted to go for something like this. Now we hurt them. Even off a basic route like this, right? Having a basic route like this will literally put them in the worst scenario ever, right? Just something as simple as this. Going for something as simple as this will literally do half damage. You have drive gauge more than ample, and they're in the corner. So now they're trapped, they're in the corner, they're incredibly uncomfortable. This is the type of situation that we want to put ourselves in, because it'll put us at such an advantage over our opponent. Then all it takes from there is like one or two more interactions, and then we can win the game entirely. So off of this instance here, right, he knocked you down, but he did put himself some burnout, right? You got hit here, you tried to press something, you got hit here. Off of this instance, this is another instance where we can make him pay, okay? If you don't know this, this is very crucial knowledge, because this literally kills. That's how important this type of thing is, right? Often an instance where you block an eagle spike that is not charged, you can drive rush at them and hit a button. Okay, never forget that this is a huge punish, because if your Rashid player thinks that he's going to get away with something like this, never let him get away with something like this. So you want to know how to make sure that you're getting a lot more value to close out games. Let me show you how to do it. Okay, after you low for a drive rush on the last instance, you can go for something like an overhead. Reason being is that your opponent is probably trying to mash tank. Okay, now it might work sometimes depending on range or whatever, but it is a very strong option to show, especially to close out, because if your opponents are not paying attention, they can very well get reset into something like this and just simply die for it. So we want to make sure that we're also incorporating drive rush overhead, low forward drive rush overhead, and options like that, just to catch your opponent off guard. Now, if you want to go for a different option, you can go for a crouching medium kick, right? Crouching medium kick is an option as well. That's just so you can catch your opponent low. You can go for another low forward, but it doesn't give you the added value that crouching drive rush, crouching medium kick does, because it combos. You can combo into crouching light kick into crouching medium punch, and then you can go DP and super. So there's one thing that I wanted to go over, and that is patience when it comes to anti-airing Rashid. Right? When it comes to anti-airing Rashid, you want to be incredibly patient. The reason being is because if you're incredibly patient, you wait until the moment in which he's closest to you, and then you can go for an anti-air, right? But the thing is, if you do it too early or whatever have you, you find yourself in situations that are less than valuable, and that's when you can go for your overhead and then kill them or whatever, right? Or off of this instance, that's where you can go for crouching light kick, right? Whatever option you want to use in this instance, whatever option you want to use is going to be how you close out the game. The one option that while you're in the mid screen that I want you to start using a little bit more often is that while you're in neutral, right? Let's say we get them off you, right? While we're in neutral, yeah, we want to use fireball, but we also want to use a little bit of your other options, right? Like solar plexus. Just because solar plexus gives you a lot of value in the neutral and it goes really far, and not to mention it combos into itself, right? So having solar plexus a little bit on board. And then the other option that I want you to start doing is doing a little bit more raw drive rush, right? The reason being is because using raw drive rush will give you a lot of value, just because you'll be able to do that. You'll be God, what is happening? You'll be able to go for your plus frames without having to deal with all of the meter involved in doing that, right? Because you have to use a lot more drive gauge using drive rush cancel, using raw drive rush to get the same effect, especially if your opponent won't check you for it, will give you a lot of value that you don't think that you're not getting right now. So keep this in mind, using raw drive rush a little bit more and using solar plexus a little bit more. Okay, so one thing I want to note here is that sometimes, okay, in these very specific instances here, I want you to DI, okay? DI your opponent. Why do we want to DI your opponent, okay? If they DI you back, they die. They don't have enough armor to survive this. So keep it in mind, the fact that you can go for an option like just DI, right? So in this case, if I were in your shoes, I would go for something like standing heavy kick DI. Why? Or standing heavy punch DI. Why? Because we want to use standing heavy punch to keep them in place and DI to check them. Now, if you do standing heavy punch DI, they might be inclined to try and press something and they might hit your armor. But in the case that they hit your armor, right, then you immediately get all the value out of it, because you have more than enough life to survive the instance and they do not. So simply forcing them into a situation where it's DI back and die, or DI and get stunned, or get put into stun and die, then that's where you want your value to come from. Oh, well, look at that. Look what happened here. Ada DI. Wait, what is going on? This is one thing I want to highlight, because we're going to move past that last incident. But this is one instance that I do want to highlight here. Okay, if your opponent does not have the answer to what you're doing to him, run their pockets. Make sure they will sit in place. Run their pockets. Yeah, even though this is fake, I'm on board. Reason why is because they don't have answers to it. If they don't have answers, run with it. In fact, sprint with it. Listen here, if you don't have answers, you can hold that, because in these rank streets, give me your LP. I want that. This is honestly a great round. Honestly, off of this instance here, you could have actually killed. Let me show you how. So here you drive rush, you throw them, back throw them, right? And as easy as can be, right? We hit them like that. All right? And they die. Like that. You see what I mean? You can even walk them into the corner, right? Look for a situation where they're chilling, or just simply catch them like that. That'll work as well. Off of a situation like that, just kill. Now, the reason why this is technically a checkmate the moment you get them into a situation where they have to block is namely because they don't have any drive gauge or super meter. Because they don't have any super meter here, that means they can't use an invincible move while in burnout. So at that case, you want to take space from them, bring them closer to the corner. Yes, they're going to get a little scraggly and try and get out the corner. So sometimes you might just want to wait for them to make a bad decision and punish that bad decision making and wait and go from there. Or alternatively, you can be a little bit more forceful, make them block something into DI and then go from there. The key part here is that you don't want to go for an option like just raw DI, because if you just try to walk up and dash and DI, you might miss, right? You're applying some extra risk to it that you don't want to add. So sometimes just keeping them here is the correct answer till they stop moving, and then we can keep them in check. As you notice here in this specific instance, right, he got hit, and when you get hit, then you don't get the wasp stun here. But because he still doesn't have any drive gauge after that instance, you can just do it again. So it's either you get hit and you die by it, or you get stunned. In which, if you get stunned here, you die anyway. Okay, so this is the last thing that I'm gonna go over in this game, but one of the things that you want to keep in mind while pressing your opponent is their opponent's drive meter. This is something that is going to be hammered home till the cows come home, is that you, while pressing your burnout opponent, need to be surveying everything that's going on, right? Because if you look at your drive gauge, that means off of a single instance, we can go for one drive rush cancel. That's either A, to do an overhead and go for a combo there, or just to extend pressure. Whatever you want to do, you have one axis of this. Okay, the other thing you want to make sure is that you have an eye on the super meter. Okay, the super meter dictates how they're going to bust out if they have a bust out option. Hey, if they have level 3 on deck, that means that while we're pressuring, we have to be a little bit more mindful of the options we're choosing, because we can keep going for this. Obviously they're stuck, but the thing about it, them being stuck, is that it gives them enough time to buffer against you. And if they give them time to buffer against you, now you're eating raging winds. This is why keeping an eye out on super gauge is crucial. With that being said, I hope this helps you and all the Ryu players. Any questions?